The ancient floorboards creaked beneath my feet as I stumbled through the darkened hallway, my heart pounding so loudly I feared it might burst from my chest. The musty air of the old Stanley Hotel filled my nostrils, carrying with it the unmistakable scent of decay and something else, something feral, something hungry. I'm David, and I never believed in monsters, at least not until tonight. It had started as a simple weekend getaway. At 27, I thought I'd seen it all, done it all. How wrong I was. The Stanley Hotel had always intrigued me, its reputation for the paranormal drawing thrill seekers and skeptics alike. I was firmly in the latter camp, armed with my camera and a smug certainty that I'd debunk whatever ghostly phenomena I encountered. As night fell, the hotel seemed to come alive. Shadows danced at the edge of my vision, and whispers echoed through empty rooms. I dismissed it all as tricks of the mind, the product of an overactive imagination fueled by the hotel's spooky reputation. But then I heard it, a howl that chilled me to my very core. It wasn't the mournful cry of a wolf in the distance. No, this was closer, much closer, and there was something human in its anguish. I found myself drawn to the sound, my feet carrying me of their own accord. The rational part of my brain screamed at me to turn back, to lock myself in my room and wait for dawn. But curiosity, that damnable human trait, propelled me forward. The howl came again, louder this time. It seemed to be coming from the hotel's sprawling gardens. I made my way to a side door, my hand trembling as I turned the handle. The cool night air hit me like a slap to the face as I stepped outside. The gardens were bathed in moonlight, casting long shadows that seemed to writhe and twist with a life of their own. I took a few tentative steps forward, my eyes straining to pierce the darkness. That's when I saw it, a figure hunched and monstrous, its back to me. Even from this distance, I could see the matted fur, the unnaturally long limbs. It was crouched over something, and with dawning horror, I realized it was feeding. I must have made a sound, a gasp, a whimper, I'm not sure. But suddenly the creature's head snapped up. It turned slowly, deliberately, and our eyes met. God, those eyes. They glowed with an unholy amber light, filled with a hunger that went beyond mere animal instinct. There was intelligence there, and malice. This was no ordinary predator. For a moment, neither of us moved. Then, with a snarl that exposed rows of dagger-like teeth, it lunged towards me. I ran like I've never run before, my legs pumping furiously as I sprinted back towards the hotel. I could hear it behind me, its hot breath on the back of my neck, claws scraping against stone as it gave chase. I burst through the door, slamming it shut behind me. But I knew it wouldn't hold for long. I raced through the hotel's winding corridors, my mind a blank slate of terror. Where could I go? Where could I hide from this thing? I found myself in the hotel's grand ballroom, moonlight streaming through the large windows. I paused for a moment, gasping for breath, my eyes darting around for any sign of pursuit. The silence was deafening. Had I lost it? Had it given up the chase? A low growl from behind me answered that question. I spun around, and there it was. The werewolf stood on its hind legs, easily 7 feet tall. Its fur was a mottled gray, matted with blood. Whether its own or its victim's, I couldn't tell. But it was the face that truly horrified me. It was a grotesque mixture of human and wolf, with an elongated snout filled with razor-sharp teeth, but eyes that were unmistakably human. Eyes filled with an intelligence that seemed to mock my terror. "Please," I whispered, though I knew it was futile. This wasn't a creature capable of mercy or reason. This was a predator, and I was its prey. It lunged forward with impossible speed. I tried to dodge, but I was too slow. I felt a searing pain as its claws raked across my chest, sending me sprawling to the floor. The werewolf loomed over me, its jaws opening wide, saliva dripping from its fangs. In that moment, facing certain death, my mind went blank. All the bravado, all the skepticism I'd carried with me melted away. I was nothing more than a scared animal, about to meet its end. But then, something unexpected happened. The werewolf hesitated. Its eyes, those terrifyingly human eyes, seemed to flicker with Recognition? Confusion? For a split second, I saw something else in those eyes. Something almost human. That moment of hesitation was all I needed. With a surge of adrenaline, I kicked out, my foot connecting solidly with the creature's jaw. It yelped in pain and surprise, stumbling backward. I scrambled to my feet and ran, not daring to look back. I found myself in the hotel's kitchen, frantically searching for a weapon, anything to defend myself. My hands closed around a large knife, and I spun around, ready to face my pursuer. But the werewolf wasn't there. The kitchen was empty, silent save for my ragged breathing. Had I lost it? Or was it toying with me, waiting for the perfect moment to strike? I couldn't stay here. I had to keep moving. But where? The hotel suddenly seemed like a maze. Every corridor a potential dead end, every room a possible trap. I made my way back to the main lobby, my eyes constantly scanning for any sign of movement. The grand staircase loomed before me, and I hesitated. Up or down? Which way offered the best chance of survival? A crash from above made the decision for me. I bolted for the basement door, taking the stairs two at a time. The darkness engulfed me as I descended, and I fumbled for my phone, using its feeble light to guide my way. The basement was a warren of narrow corridors and storage rooms. I ducked into one, wedging myself behind a stack of old furniture. My heart was pounding so loudly I was sure it would give me away. Minutes passed, though they felt like hours. I strained my ears for any sound of pursuit, but all I could hear was the pounding of my own heart and the ragged sound of my breathing. Slowly, carefully, I peeked out from my hiding spot. The corridor was empty. Had I truly lost it? I allowed myself a glimmer of hope. Maybe, just maybe, I could survive this night. That hope was shattered by a low, rumbling growl that seemed to come from everywhere at once. The werewolf hadn't given up. It was down here in the darkness, hunting me. I gripped the knife tighter, knowing it was a pitiful defense against such a creature, but it was all I had. I couldn't stay hidden forever. Sooner or later it would find me. My only chance was to somehow make it back upstairs, to find help or escape. Taking a deep breath, I stepped out into the corridor. The basement was a maze, and in the dim light of my phone, every shadow seemed to hide a monstrous shape. I moved as quietly as I could, straining my ears for any sound of my pursuer. I turned a corner and froze. There, at the end of the corridor, stood the werewolf. It was on all fours now, its massive head low to the ground, those terrifying eyes fixed on me. For a moment, neither of us moved. Then, with a roar that shook dust from the ceiling, it charged. I turned and ran, no longer caring about stealth. I could hear it behind me, its claws scrabbling on the concrete floor. I took turns at random, not knowing where I was going, driven only by the primal need to escape. I burst through a door and found myself in a large open room. Old machinery loomed in the shadows. The hotel's boiler room. Steam hissed from pipes, and the air was thick and humid. I spun around, knife held out before me. The werewolf prowled into the room, its eyes never leaving me. It circled slowly, and I turned with it, never letting it out of my sight. "Stay back," I warned, my voice shaking. "I'm not afraid to use this." The werewolf's mouth seemed to curl into a mocking grin, as if amused by my pitiful attempt at bravery. It lunged forward so fast I barely had time to react. I slashed wildly with the knife, feeling it connect with something solid. The werewolf yelped in pain, recoiling. A line of dark blood welled up on its shoulder. For a moment, hope surged within me. I had heard it. It wasn't invincible. But that hope quickly turned to ash as I saw the wound begin to close before my eyes. The werewolf snarled, its eyes now blazing with fury. I had only succeeded in making it angry. It attacked again, and this time I wasn't fast enough. Its claws raked across my arm, sending the knife clattering to the floor. I cried out in pain, stumbling backward. My back hit something solid, one of the old boilers. The werewolf advanced slowly, savoring its victory. I was trapped, unarmed, at the mercy of this monstrous creature. This was it. This was how I was going to die. As the werewolf tensed to make its final lunge, a crazy, desperate idea struck me. With the last of my strength, I reached out and grabbed a nearby valve, twisting it with all my might. A jet of scalding steam erupted from the pipe, hitting the werewolf full in the face. It howled in agony, rearing back, clawing at its eyes. I didn't waste the opportunity. I ran, ducking under its flailing limbs, heading for the stairs. I took them 3 at a time, my lungs burning, my injured arm throbbing. I could hear the werewolf recovering, its enraged howls echoing through the basement. I burst out into the lobby, looking around wildly. Where could I go? Where would I be safe? My eyes fell on the elevator. Without thinking, I ran for it, jabbing the call button repeatedly. Come on, I muttered, glancing over my shoulder. I could hear the werewolf coming, its claws clicking on the basement stairs. The elevator dinged, the doors sliding open. I threw myself inside, hammering the close door button. The werewolf appeared in the lobby just as the doors began to close. Our eyes met one last time, and I saw something there that chilled me even more than its bestial rage. I saw recognition, intelligence. This wasn't just a mindless beast. There was a person in there, trapped behind those animal eyes. The doors closed just as the werewolf lunged. I felt the impact shake the elevator, heard claws screeching against metal, but I was safe for the moment. I pressed the button for the top floor, sagging against the wall as the elevator began to rise. My brief moment of relief was shattered by a sound from above. Something was moving in the elevator shaft, keeping pace with the car. My blood ran cold as I realized the truth. It was climbing up after me. The elevator shuddered to a halt at the top floor. I hesitated for a moment, terrified of what might be waiting for me. But I couldn't stay here. I had to keep moving. The doors opened, and I stumbled out into the corridor. It was quiet up here, almost peaceful. But I knew that peace was an illusion. The werewolf was coming, and I had to find a way to survive. I made my way down the hallway, trying doors as I went. All locked. I was running out of options, and I could hear the werewolf now, its claws scraping against metal as it climbed. At the end of the hall, I found a door that opened. I ducked inside, finding myself in a large suite. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a breathtaking view of the mountains, the full moon casting an eerie glow over the landscape. I barricaded the door as best I could, pushing a heavy wardrobe in front of it. But I knew it wouldn't hold for long, not against that creature. I looked around the room, desperate for anything I could use as a weapon. My eyes fell on a decorative silver letter opener on the desk. Silver. Wasn't that supposed to be effective against werewolves? It seemed absurd to be thinking of movie monster rules, but at this point, I was willing to try anything. I grabbed the letter opener, its weight reassuring in my hand. Not a moment too soon. A tremendous crash shook the door, the wardrobe sliding several inches across the floor. Another impact, and I could see the door beginning to splinter. I backed up against the windows, the letter opener held out before me. The door exploded inward, the wardrobe toppling over. And there it was, the werewolf. It filled the doorway, its massive form heaving with each breath, those terrifying eyes fixed on me. For a moment we stood there, predator and prey, locked in a silent confrontation. Then, with a roar that shook the very foundations of the hotel, it charged. I waited until the last possible second, then dove to the side. The werewolf, unable to stop its momentum, crashed into the windows. The glass shattered, and for one heart-stopping moment, the werewolf teetered on the edge. Then, with a howl of fury and fear, it fell. I rushed to the broken window, looking down. The werewolf had landed on a lower roof, 2 floors down. It wasn't moving. Relief flooded through me, so intense I felt my knees go weak. It was over. I had survived. But as I watched, the werewolf began to stir. Slowly, painfully, it got to its feet. And then it did something I never expected. It began to change. I watched in horrified fascination as the creature's form shifted and twisted. Fur receded, claws retracted. The monstrous face reshaped itself into human features. And there, standing on the roof where the werewolf had fallen, was a man. He looked up, his eyes meeting mine. And in that moment, I understood. This wasn't some random monster. This was someone who lived with this curse, who perhaps struggled against it. Someone who, in the light of the full moon, lost control and became a beast. The man turned and ran, disappearing into the shadows of the hotel. I stood there for a long time, trying to process what I had seen, what I had experienced. As dawn broke over the mountains, painting the sky in hues of pink and gold. I made my way down to the lobby. The night staff looked at me with concern. I must have been a sight, with my torn clothes and wild eyes, but I waved off their questions, mumbling something about a bad dream. I checked out early, my hands shaking as I signed the paperwork. As I walked to my car, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. I looked back at the hotel, its windows gleaming in the morning sun. And there, in a second-floor window, I saw a face, a man's face, worn and sad. Our eyes met for a brief moment, and I saw recognition there, and regret. Then he was gone, the curtain falling back into place. I got in my car and drove away, my mind reeling. I had come to the Stanley Hotel as a skeptic, certain that there were no such things as monsters. I left as a changed man, with the knowledge that the world was far stranger and more terrifying than I had ever imagined. But also perhaps more complex, for the creature that had hunted me, that had nearly killed me, was also a man. A man cursed to become a monster, yes, but a man nonetheless. And as I drove away from the Stanley Hotel, leaving behind the most terrifying night of my life, I found myself wondering about him. Who was he? How had he come to be cursed? And was there perhaps some way to break that curse? I don't know if I'll ever return to the Stanley Hotel. The memories of that night still haunt my dreams, but I know that I'll never look at a full moon the same way again. And I'll always wonder about the man behind the monster, the Werewolf of Stanley Hotel. As I drove down the winding mountain road, putting distance between myself and the hotel, I couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't over, that somehow, someday our paths would cross again. And next time, I vowed I would be prepared. For now, though, I was alive. I had survived a night of unimaginable terror, and I had a story to tell. A story that I knew no one would ever believe. But I would know the truth. About the night I spent in the Stanley Hotel, about the werewolf I encountered, and about the thin line that separates man from monster. The sun climbed higher in the sky, chasing away the shadows of the night. But I knew that some shadows couldn't be banished so easily. They lingered in the dark corners of old hotels, in the depths of cursed souls, and in the memories of those who had seen too much. I was David, 27 years old, and I had survived a night with the Werewolf of Stanley. But as I drove away, I couldn't shake the feeling that my encounter with the supernatural was far from over. It was perhaps only the beginning.